Just a heads up, this article read will contain full spoilers for Iron Fist Season 2. All of the Marvel Netflix shows before Iron Fist had some sort of hook. Daredevil had Catholicism and Matt Murdock's career as an attorney. Jessica Jones tackled sex, consent, and trauma. Luke Cage depicted local city politics and race relations. On the other hand, Season 1 of Iron Fist was barely about anything. Season 2 of Iron Fist is a completely different show, with finally something to say. The first time we see Danny Rand in non-vigilante mode, it is in a position we don't expect him to be. He is working an honest job, doing hard physical labor carrying boxes for a moving company. He is discreet and anonymous, wearing a hoodie and avoiding attention. Danny is acknowledging his privilege, something he was accosted by Luke Cage and the Defenders for not doing so. Danny's brother, Ward Meachum, doesn't quite understand Danny's explanation, but he relents. We'll get to him in a bit. Here we see Danny Rand actively trying to give back to the community with honest, hard work, as we do with Colleen Wing. Having hung up her katana due to her fear of committing violence, Colleen is now volunteering at a community center. Previously in Season 1, she taught youths self-defense, fighting in discreet cage matches to fund her classes. Now she aids the community in a more public and less illicit manner. The dilemma that Danny eventually faces is that he is giving too much. He becomes obsessive in his mission to protect the city, now carrying the burden that Matt Murdock presumably killed himself carrying before him. Colleen is the only person in his life able to ground him, keeping him from overextending himself and teaching him how to control his emotions. To some degree, Danny is too far gone in his self-righteous battle. As a result, the Iron Fist becomes his own drug. Unlike his fortune, and unlike his white privilege, the Iron Fist is one of the only things that Danny Rand does not inherit, but rather earns. This is where Danny's other brother, Davos, comes into play. See, Davos believes the Iron Fist to be a birthright of his, an entitlement. When he sees an outsider, a boy who fell from the sky, earn it instead, he conjures up a plan to steal back what he believes to be rightfully his. We have Danny, who wins the Iron Fist in ritual combat, but is internally damaging himself with his obsession to use the fist in his never-ending quest to quash crime. Davos is not too dissimilar, desiring the power because of his belief that he would do better with it, and that his form of violent justice is purer. It turns out that regardless if one is worthy of the Iron Fist, it was neither one of theirs to begin with. Probably the biggest turn of events in the season is Colleen Wing becoming the new Iron Fist, and an even bigger revelation is that one of her ancestors, the Pirate Queen in Kunlun, could have very well been the first person to wield the fist. Truly, the birthright is Colleen's. Danny's decision to help Colleen obtain and inherit the Iron Fist has a lot of implications. It is Danny finally being self-aware of his own addiction, acknowledging the strength of Colleen's character, and upon the discovery of Colleen's lineage, an opportunity to not only discover more about the Asian-based culture that he immersed himself in, but also about his own destiny and purpose. I haven't made it a secret that I believe that an Asian American Iron Fist would have been the best approach for this series. I've talked much about it in both written word and in podcast form. It's difficult to tell whether or not Colleen becoming the new Iron Fist was an intentional way to correct this, but the journey that Danny is going as a result of this development is promising in potentially righting some wrongs. Danny understands that even though he wants the Iron Fist, it isn't his. He no longer has the burden of risking life and limb for others on a daily basis. He is now fighting for his own answers. He doesn't need to move boxes in an act to prove himself, he just needs to practice self-care and self-reflection. With that, it's fitting that Ward is his travel companion. In several ways, the plight of Ward Meachum is parallel to Danny's. He too suffers a drug problem, quite literally. While his Narcotics Anonymous meetings are a mechanism to cope with it, Ward struggles the entire season to accept help. It makes sense that Ward was confused by Danny's blue-collar career change at the beginning of Season 2. Despite his character growth from the first season, the concept of helping others was alien to him. It takes a series of self-destructive episodes for Ward to learn any of this, with the sponsor and lover Bethany caught in the mix. It isn't until after Ward relapses with addiction and learns that Bethany is pregnant with his child that he takes a major shift. Flowers in hand, he states his desire to Bethany to help take care of their child together. He wants to prove himself a better person. She says no, and her reasoning makes sense. Ward doesn't know how to take care of himself, so how can he be expected to take care of others yet? The same goes for Danny. How could he protect a whole city when he's essentially hurting himself every day on the job? This season of Iron Fist seems to go out of its way to do everything that the first season could not do, especially when it comes to character development. Every character in the show goes through a period of self-reflection. Joy questions what she truly wants, a new start for her future or revenge due to her past. And Mary Walker has a more literal version of her struggle, with her two alters of Mary and Walker having contradicting desires and ideas of self-care. Iron Fist Season 2 is about the difference between want and need. Danny and Davos both want the fist, but what they really needed were their own self-evaluations on where their destiny truly lies. Colleen just wants to help people like normal, but she has to claim her birthright and use the fist, as she's the best person to do so. Ward wants to retreat to his substances, then decides to be a supportive father. But first, he needs to learn how to best take care of himself. All of these characters have the need to ground themselves in reality by the end of the story. With all the talk from former showrunner Scott Buck about Iron Fist and Inhumans need to be grounded, it is ironic that this more mythic season, sans Buck, is still grounded in an entirely different sense. Hey everyone, it's Chris Compendio, and you're listening to AP Marvel. Assuming all went well, you should have just listened to my article read of my Iron Fist Season 2 thematic take. And I got a full panel here. We're just going to talk about Iron Fist Season 2 and talk about what the season was actually about. So, first up, I got AP Marvel substitute teacher, as we call him. I got Thomas Rasmussen here. Thomas, what's up?
Hi, not much.
Okay. Got Adam Barnhardt here. Adam, how are those Twitter mentions going?
Man, I have kind of taken a break from Twitter.
Okay,
I don't know what it is. And surprisingly, my life has been much better. I'm not sure if that's like a direct correlation.
Wow, what a surprise.
Right? No, yeah, they're calm this week. I got to be right back while I tweet something.
Okay. And we got Rhiannon here, a.k.a. Brooklyn Wallace. Rhiannon, what is new?
Nothing much. I've been watching... So since Adam's been gone off Twitter, it appears Joe Quesada has just taken on all the trolls. So I was just catching up on all of that.
Yeah, Quesada has taken Adam's role.
Man, Quesada's just like... Maybe he was inspired by Adam.
Yeah.
Maybe Adam just taking on the trolls, Quesada was like, I can do that too.
Yeah, Adam is the MMD crusader around these parts. So, yeah, we all finished Iron Fist Season 2. The reason I don't have Anthony and Izzy here is because I don't think either of them really care, so screw them.
Does Izzy really not care?
Fired.
Well, I mean, I sent Izzy my article for her to, like, give feedback, and, like, it has full spoilers, and she just read the whole thing, like, not really caring about it.
Got you.
Gave me good feedback on that. So, I've been contemplating this a lot, because I don't think Season 1 really had an obvious thematic point to it the same way, like, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage did. So, what's his name? M. Raven Metzner, that's his name. Definitely ran a tight ship, I think. So, but in terms of, like, actually putting words to what the season was about, I was curious what you guys thought about it. And we've all talked about in length about this Adam and Rhiannon, I've been like listening to you guys on the podcast talking about that. Adam, I read your review. So I wanted to kind of take a more intimate look into what we've already talked about, and just trying to sum up like the dramatic question, the thesis statement that Iron Fist season 2 had. So Adam, let's start with you since you're our resident Iron Fist fan here. What did you think season 2 was about, if you had to give like an elevator pitch?
If I had to give an elevator pitch on season 2?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I do want to start this off by saying how thrilled I am that this is my third podcast in a row talking Iron Fist. So that's kind of dope. But on the other hand, I'm almost already exhausted talking about it, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah. We're spoiling you, really.
Yeah.
That's okay. We're going to have like 10 when it comes time for Daredevil season 3.
Yeah, I know.
Exponential increase.
Yeah.
I'm already, it's like, how many, what? We do one review? I mean, like, no. Okay, sorry.
I'm not sure if it was an overarching theme for the season, but definitely I finally stood up and applauded Danny when he said the stuff he did about how he didn't know what exactly the Iron Fist was. So I'm not sure if I would correlate kind of that stuff with privilege or not. I guess that's probably the closest thing I would relate that to. But that was only the last couple of episodes. Not really anything stood out prior to that, at least to me, I guess.
Right. I mean, he did kind of cite like his little underground bunker where he kept, I guess, like punching the wall and like citing that as like his reason for giving it up. Full spoilers for the season, by the way, in case it wasn't obvious. Yeah. I don't know why I didn't say that before. I just thought it would be assumed.
Work it into the article read.
Oh, sure. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, another. I'm not sure if you had. I think you might have had this on the list. Another theme, if you will, is kind of the whole family dynamic. Obviously, the literal family with Joy and Ward. But then you have Danny and Davos essentially has mommy problems, if you can call it that.
Ward and full spoilers. Ward and his child.
Yes. Oh, yeah, hell yeah, I totally forgot about that. Ward Jr. But yeah, I would say that was another huge part of it too. And that with that aspect of it, I almost had I did have a tough time kind of looking at Davos as the villain. That is until he punched that dude's stomach out.
Oh, yeah. That poor man.
I'll get into my thoughts on that later.
Yeah, it was... I mean, just because that, it was almost a Thanos... Not Thanos-esque, I guess. But to begin with, you kind of saw where Davos was coming from, I guess.
It was like a Killmonger. Like,
yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Right.
It was one of those where, I'm feeling, I mean, like, this isn't a bad guy. This isn't a bad guy. They had to do the bad guy moment, back to my first time on this podcast. Yeah, they had to do a specific bad guy moment to make it clear that he's the villain.
That's a very good analogy.
Rhiannon, anything else? And I guess we're just kind of moving on to you. Like, what did other themes? Any other, like? Do you think you can sum it up in a word? Like, the word I just kept thinking was destiny, but I thought it was just kind of too generic. But it did kind of apply here. Any thoughts on? Right.
Like, I sometimes have to remind myself that I did enjoy the first season. The first was that bad. But it's about, they sat down and they took Danny and they made him a person that checked his privilege and that understood, why what he did was horrible. They took Colleen and had her finding her way back home, or, to finding more about who she was and shaping her way back to being a warrior, which she was when we first met her. I don't know about Davos. Like Davos, to me, he felt like an obligatory bad guy. Like, yeah, they had to punch that stomach out for him to be a bad guy.
Right. All right, I'll share later.
But he had potential to be a good guy. If he wasn't, if we didn't have to have a villain of the season.
Mm-hmm.
There was, and then Mary Walker. I have my own theories on Mary.
Yeah.
And that at this point she's just a tertiary character, and that she's just a side character, and when that third altar comes out, that's the villain.
Yeah, this was just like a Typhoid Mary prologue, I guess. Odd place to put that, but we can talk about that later.
I was about to say, now I've said everything, I should just log off.
I'm really hoping they directly copy the plot of Split and have the third altar have superpowers. That's my...
Yeah. It's definitely not a film you wanted to... I mean, I liked and loved Split, but it didn't... It could have used some more consultation on that realm, but I really like the concept, Rhiannon, of like finding your place, because and I kind of talked about it in my piece. Like they're all born in a certain place, in a certain position to kind of inherit something. Like Dany is like born into wealth. Colleen is not born into the hand, but that's where she is when we first see her. Davos is born like kind of expecting this obligation, like this entitlement of the Iron Fist. And they all kind of figure out at the end that they all have to kind of forge their own path at the end. Like you have Dany and Ward literally traveling around the world, which I think is a cool concept. Like just trying to figure stuff out, which I think is a really cool thing. And you have Colleen, she hung up the sword, she hung up the katana, and she's kind of trying to fight her destiny, and at the end she just has to kind of embrace it, which I thought was a nice little arc. I mean, I thought that like the whole box element, I think that was kind of stretched out, because she has the box, and that we kind of forget about the box for the whole time, and then but what can you do? That makes sense at the end, like she was trying to avoid it. Yeah, Thomas, talk about punching people in the stomach.
I was gonna give my thoughts on the overall themes of the episode.
Oh, sure, whatever.
Dive into those weeds a little later on. I think that for me, the biggest overarching theme, and this might be too big, is just that the season heavily encouraged not taking the easy, obvious solution to problems. And I think that it did a lot of work to showcase how making peace between the triads was like difficult and frustrating, and there were steps forward and back.
Sure.
But just outright solving the problem with violence, which seems to be the easy, obvious solution, is wrong. I think in certain ways, ignoring her destiny, like Colleen was sort of doing, maybe not the easy thing, but like the easiest, simplest thing, which is like just stay out of it, and that's not the right solution. Sure. And I think that if we're going to make it a metaphor, the first season of Iron Fist was the easy, obvious solution. Just make it as fast as possible, copying everything they could from the comics. And the second season, they had to do more work. They put more thought into it. They made some of this difficult character work actually make it into the season. There's my overhaul. And I thought that Davos made a fantastic villain in the sense that he was one of the most like sympathetic, not in that like I wanted to go out and kill people, but like I understood where he was coming from every step of the way, because he was sort of doing the fish out of water thing, which like in some cases is funny. It's like Thor smashing the glass on the ground. But for Davos, it's like he comes out of a place where there are these certain ideals, and those ideals don't apply to our society the same way. And he's sort of like super powerful and mismatched with the scenario, the setting that he's in. And you sort of see the non-hilarious awkwardness of that.
Yeah, I mean, Thor throws a cup to the ground, and Davos has to onset a sex scandal. Same thing.
Yeah.
Like,
I really thought he was going to kill her during that scene. I was really sure that was going to happen.
Yeah, I was surprised, like, just how tense that was. The entire time watching season 2, I was like, this barely feels like season 1. So you talk about the idea of season 1 going the easy way. You know, I feel that there wasn't a lot of character, and I don't mean like the literal characters, but I mean just like the tone and the atmosphere of season 1. You know, there wasn't really a sense of place the way that all the other Netflix shows that I cited kind of do, you know. Not a lot of interesting things with color or set design, you know, save for like maybe 1 or 2 scenes. You know, I always keep talking about that RZA directed episode. But I think, you know, no more corporate boardroom scenes. No Rand Enterprises stuff. Instead, it's a little more intimate. We have Danny Rand like moving boxes in Chinatown. So, you know, I was listening to last week's Marvel News Desk, and I think it was Caleb who said something along the lines of like, "Oh, Chinatown feels like the character in this season. It feels like to Iron Fist season 2 as Harlem was to Luke Cage." And then I think both you, Adam and Rhiannon, I think you're both kind of stating like this kind of tiredness of gang warfare of like, you know, just kind of insert ethnicity here, and then it's just gangs like, I don't know, getting in gun and stabbing matches. Did that kind of, do you feel that because that was the focus of that was like the inciting incident of the entire season. So did you feel like it negatively impacted your viewing of the show, or did they eventually like find something worth in the midst of all of that? If either of you want to pick up on that.
I'm tired of that stuff. Go ahead, Rhiannon. No, I'll let Rhiannon go if she has.
I mean, to your question, I mean, to just not make this another podcast where Adam and I talk about how tired we are of gang warfare, but they did move it on to something else. And I think if you talk to, you know, if you watched people's reactions to the shows, when it became about something else other than the triad wars and the tigers versus the whatevers, that's when a lot of the fans also enjoyed the series more.
Interesting.
And I mean, maybe,
knock on doors.
I didn't want a scientific poll or anything. You see what you want to see.
I guess I'll go ahead and be the dissenting opinion. I sort of liked the triad stuff, not because I'm super into more gangs and stuff like that, but the way that they played it was less of like fighting off the gangs and more like there was an acceptance very early on that like the Hatchet Men would stay and the Golden Tigers would stay, and they're just trying to negotiate like the terms of that arrangement. And it felt very much like a different take on gang warfare. Like they weren't trying to fight the gang members. And I liked that. And I also felt like it was much more in keeping with my ignorant conception of in Eastern philosophy, which was more about like balance and like, you know, different forces, like not a static balance, but like a dynamic balance between these different factions instead of like trying to wipe them all out. I thought that it played really well in that context, and you contrasted very nicely with Davos later on, who like did what maybe we wanted Danny to do, to like just fight the problem away so we don't have to sit in more like conference rooms. But like we got sort of as an audience got shown the error of our ways with that wish fulfillment. So I don't know.
I mean, I feel that in lieu of conference boardrooms, like we just got like. And this is a problem with Netflix, Marvel in general, but just warehouses. Everything's in a warehouse, and or like in the docks at night with all these shipping crates. Like that's literally every single action sequence in this damn sub-franchise. But you know, I digress. Like, you know, they're filming in New York, so I guess that's like, you know, like what else can they take advantage of, like with the scenarios they come up with? Well,
it's important to remember that they filmed in New York this past winter.
Oh,
and if you remember this past winter, it was like 9 degrees for months on end. So I actually heard, I mean, I actually heard that the writers were trying to find every way to keep things inside.
Oh,
yes, well, they have New York, and they're going to do.
You
stuff
don't understand
outside.
how used to the cold Danny's become. That's...
yeah. So I think the warehouses and stuff. I think if you start looking at it, I mean, I look at stupid stuff like that all the time. Like Jessica Jones has a lot of outdoor scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Like they go out to these fields and stuff. And Iron Fist is like all inside. And it's the time of year they recorded or they filmed.
Yeah, I mean, Rhiannon, you could just look out your window and there's Daredevil right there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not right now, or I wouldn't be podcasting.
That would be a guest on this podcast. Yeah. Oh my!
An on-field reporter, basically. Compared to the Hand, I mean, how did you feel about the threat in this season versus last season?
I don't think I ever took the Hand as a serious opponent, I guess. It just seems like they're kind of the organization with so many people, it's almost too much. You know, until the Defenders, which until the Defenders, it didn't really have a face.
Right.
And even then, when the Defenders came about, they barely kind of had a face.
I mean, that's kind of MacGuffin-esque, isn't that? Because, like by definition, MacGuffin is like, it's a thing that everyone needs. You don't know exactly why, but it's the thing that's driving the plot because they need it. It's like, with the Hand, you know they have to beat the Hand, but you don't really know why they have to beat the Hand. They just have to beat the Hand.
but in season 1 of Iron Fist, the Hand was interesting. They were a scary opponent. There was a little bit of mystery and fear from the unknown. Like you said, they don't really exist. Or they do really exist, but you don't. There's a lot of unknowns about them. You don't know why they're scary, but they brought that man back from the dead.
Right.
And
True.
they had whatever spy power to keep an eye on him.
Right.
And there was a lot of stuff associated with that made them very fearful. Like, when I think of season 2, I'm like, okay, there were Triad Wars, and Davos punched a guy's stomach.
Yeah, and you don't actually see the effects that the gang war in season 2 actually has on the community. So it's really just like it doesn't, at some point, it doesn't feel like Danny and Colleen are actually defending the community. It feels like they're just stopping all of the gang members from being brutally murdered. That was just my view on that. Thomas, what were you about to say?
Yeah. To that point, I think if the season had a longer episode count, the best use of that extra time would have been them just sort of like chilling with members of Chinatown and because Luke Cage does a lot of hanging out in the barber shop or talking to people on the street, and then you get the sense of the sort of community and how people are reacting and stuff like that. I think it was just too tight of a season, which I liked action-wise, but I think they didn't have the time to really embed Chinatown as a character the way that Harlem is for Luke Cage.
Yeah, not to mention Harlem felt off they had their real life figures, Dapper Dan came in and gave Luke Cage a slick new suit, and they're like you said, the barbershop, they're talking about real life things, and then you have musical performances from real people, real recognizable people, and it just really it feels like it's kind of taking you on a journey through this very real place, unlike Daredevil. I keep talking about Daredevil having this very exaggerated war zone depiction of Hell's Kitchen, and Iron Fist, I mean, I feel like they could have done something more with the community center, or just have Danny at the streets and relating to people, but it's
I mean, on that vein, if you take that very, very first scene where he's standing up against the armored car, if you had just had the very first few seconds be Danny standing over a dead teenager,
right?
A teenager that had been caught up in a battle, and you see a little bit of the death of that teenager, and then he goes and he beats up an armored car, then it wouldn't just feel like he was beating up an armored car.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like they kind of held back on any kind of stuff like that until BB just abruptly died in the last episode, or the second to last episode rather.
Yeah.
So that's I don't know.
I admit they did a good job of pulling my heartstrings on that particular move, because that was clearly like the intended focus was like, oh shit, now they killed this guy that like. But we have gotten to see him throughout the season. We've seen like the conflict he went through. Like we got to be like, yeah, when he made the choice to be good and confront his old, and then he just dies, and that's like genuinely shocking.
Yeah.
I don't think Iron Fist Season 1 was capable of that kind of emotional manipulation of the audience. I don't think they had the tools available to them to make us feel things. So I thought that was cool, even if it was maybe a little late.
Yeah. Crazy brainwashed kids. Speaking of brainwashed kids...
Yeah, that one dude is weird.
Yeah. Yeah. So, talking about the action sequences in the show, they made a bigger deal out of the action this time around. They had a stunt coordinator. What was his name?
Clayton Barber.
Yeah, and they even had a video of him like giving pointers to Danny and like whoever his scene partner was in that one sequence that they were filming, and it really felt like they were just putting up a giant neon sign like, "Hey, the action sequences are actually good in this season this time around." Definitely the Crane sisters fight. I think that's one that you guys talked about in your podcast.
Yeah,
was one that stood out. Were there any other action sequences just going around the room that kind of stood out to people in that way?
So I mean, right out of the gates, that armored car scene he was like, he crouches on top, and the score does like a chime. I don't know what it was, a chime maybe, or I don't. It just made it feel kind of like a very pulpy type. But the first time I was like, damn, holy shit, this action's actually is better was that kitchen scene. I think it was episode 2 or 3.
Oh
maybe.
yeah.
They're having dinner and they're talking about, I don't know, shrimp egg rolls or something. And then they fight the Golden Tigers in the kitchen, I think.
Yeah.
And I think Colleen like pulls out a chain, or there's a chain involved, and she starts using it. I'm like, damn, okay, this is all right, you know.
Yeah, definitely better use of like the environment, you know. Like that's definitely a thing about the Crane sister fight. Like everyone was just using the tools around them, and at some point they were just like wailing on each other with stuff, and there was like a very good sense of like the environment that they were inhabiting. Sure.
Can I degrade the quality of discussion for just a sec to go on a quick tirade?
Yeah.
The guy in the kitchen who uses the chain, he's one of like the kids who are like out on their luck, like BB's group. And in like that first scene in the kitchen, he like throws the chain, and Colleen just like reaches up, catches it, and then like beats him up. And I'm like, yeah, the chain was a stupid weapon. And he keeps using it the entire season, all the way until that last episode where Colleen's taking them all on, and he's still got his chain. I'm like, the commitment to his tool is incredible.
The chain belonged to his dead grandfather, Thomas.
I want to believe that it has that kind of sentimental value, because any logical person would have picked up another weapon after that many humiliating defeats.
I mean, wasn't it?
He's getting better.
Yeah. He's trying, okay?
No, I loved it. It added character to like this dude who's like just the chain guy. Like he'd clearly carved out his niche and was not willing to part with it.
I mean, didn't Jessica Henwick like play like in the Sand Sister in Game of Thrones, who like used a whip against like sword people?
I've watched Game of Thrones.
Oh, she had a whip when everyone else had like a dagger or sword, and she was like fighting like. Well, that's how she died at the end, because she was using a whip. But yeah, Rhiannon, before you were rudely interrupted by this tirade.
I'm so sorry.
I'm trying. I mean, the Crane sisters. You know, the badass lady fight.
Oh yeah, love those ladies.
That was just really nice to see all of that happen, and I liked the Crane sisters. I didn't want Colleen and Misty to be beating them up.
Yeah. Can't they all just
I
get
needed
along?
them to punch somebody through the stomach, so I knew they were bad guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like sequences like that, they were definitely, there was that infamous clip of, what was it, like 38 cuts, like during this very short scene in season 1, or I forget the exact number, but a lot of it was more coherent. A lot of the hits like really registered better. I feel like that's definitely a part of that. And I don't know, it was just presented better. I can't really remember a single sequence from season 1 besides like maybe the part when Danny saves Joy and like they go in the elevator, and that was only because it was like edited in this very stylistic way. And I liked conceptually the Bakuto Colleen fight at the end because it was a cool setup. But it's raining, and they have like katanas, and it's like kind of this wire fu kind of thing. But it ended so quickly that I just kind of forgot about it immediately. Honestly, I felt like the Crane Sisters fight was really the only one that stood out to me. I would have thought that the ritual fight between Danny and Davos, like the flashback where they were just all bloody by the end. I thought it was segmented in a way that like it just didn't impact me. Did you have any thoughts on that, Thomas?
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of their flashback fight. I felt like they went from the very start to them being kind of already bloody and tired and beaten.
Yeah.
And they correctly portrayed 2 exhausted individuals, but that does not make for a good fight scene. For me, action-wise, right at that first like armored car fight, I could tell, I was like watching it and I was like, all right, this isn't like blockbuster quality, but I can already tell this is better. I mean, from the very first fight scene. And then I really enjoyed when Walker took down Danny in the subway. Their fight sequence was not necessarily like the greatest kung fu fight sequence, but I liked the way that 2 very different fighters played off of each other there.
Yeah,
and it seemed well choreographed to me. Yeah. So like that, I really enjoyed.
Yeah, definitely a thing about having different characters with different backgrounds from like Walker and Davos and Misty. They all the choreography comes from character, and that was, I think, that was something really big about Captain America: Civil War, because you had Cap, you had Iron Man, you had Widow and Black Panther, and like just from like their stances, just from the way they would move, they were all very distinct, and I just kind of like that attention to detail. So yeah, I don't know, that flashback fight, like you can't expect every fight sequence to be like a Jackie Chan fight sequence. I follow Edgar Wright on Twitter, and he's just been posting Jackie Chan gifs like for like a week now, and just kind of watching how and there's a great every frame of painting about this, like just how he kind of uses the environment around him. Like he might use like a table or a ladder or whatever like that is. And the cool element I thought with that flashback sequence was like the cloth that connected their arms together, and that's why I wanted to see the whole fight like uninterrupted, because I just wanted to see how they would use that. And then Davos just kind of rips it. It was like, okay, sure, and now they're just all spitting blood and looking gross. Because I think it is possible to have like if you've seen Atomic Blonde, there's that sequence at the end of the second act where like Charlize Theron and the other guy are just like wailing at each other, and they're just taking whatever they can and just smacking each other in the face, and they're actually just like stumbling around, but there's like tension when you're like seeing someone like reach their hand for something. So yeah, I mean the action was overall better, but to me there wasn't any Daredevil season 1 hallway fight. Anyone agree or disagree with that?
Or there wasn't a hallway fight in season 1 either, was there?
The one when they're getting in the elevator was literally a hallway fight.
Sure.
So
yeah,
it's the only one you remember. Iron Fist season 1 with the Hatchet Men, like the first time we meet them.
Yeah.
Outside of Joy's apartment. God.
Yeah.
I mean, you had that. There was a fun fight where Colleen was in the kitchen and Danny's like outside trying to distract the people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I enjoyed the fun of that, but as far as the high tension, oh my god, who's gonna win? A hallway type. Yeah, and I think that hallway, it's an escalation, it's a goal. You're fighting to get somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's why it works so well.
Mm-hmm.
But this season, I didn't feel like... I feel like they were more emotional battles. There was a lot of action, but not so much like fighting to get through somewhere.
Yeah, like fighting with purpose, I think, is the phrase people like to use. I can't expect every Netflix season to have like an old boy scene. Like that's just too unfair to ask, I think. But I don't know. I would have thought like with the emphasis on, hey, we have good action now. I was surprised there wasn't like a centerpiece moment, you know. But I guess that's forgivable because we seem to like the story overall, which at the end is what really matters. But I do distinctly remember I think it was the second to last episode when Davos is like infiltrating the community center, and the hatchet dude like decides to hold him off. yeah, and he takes out his hatchet, and I was like, oh, and here's my mindset. I was like, oh, this reminds me of the Raid 2 when there was like this really brutal kitchen scene, and like that the good guy's gonna win, but like it's like this very long, extended, like escalating, bloody fight scene, and then this one was less than a minute, and I was okay, poor dude. I know he was just a minor character whose name I don't even remember, but like, man, that dude seems so ready. I was ready. Yeah, exactly.
They built him up to be like he was always ready to take on Danny Rand. Even when he was the Iron Fist, he was fearless. He was savage. Like he's like, let me at him, and then he just killed by his own hatchet 10 seconds.
Yeah, that was like Indiana Jones shooting the guy when he was swinging the sword around. That's basically what that was.
And he's not even the only person to be killed by his own hatchet in that season. He's like the third one.
You guys should really think this whole hatchet concept, if you ask me.
Get a different gang.
The chain gang. Everyone uses chains.
It's the Netflix universe. Everybody should just go by their nationality.
I thought...
Even in
Chinatown... I realize in Chinatown, you can't have the Chinese versus the Chinese versus... But you could have the Western Chinese versus the Eastern Chinese versus, I don't know my provinces or anything.
Oh, but, sure, yeah.
Maybe there's some Vietnamese or whatever. And, everybody must be racially profiled for their gangs.
Yeah.
What?
They sort of tried, right? So in Daredevil Season 1, there were, the Russian brothers, and they had all Russian people working for
that's
them.
what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. The Netflix universe, every gang should just be based on their nationality.
Irish.
Because, you've had the Irish, you've had the Russians. Up in Luke Cage, you had the Italians. You've had...
it's true. The bikers.
It goes, but the bikers were...
the Dogs of Hell.
But the Dogs of Hell were like the Irish, or there's the Irish anyways. Yeah. So... The Hatchet Gang should have just gone with their nationality or their slightly racially insensitive label, and they didn't, and therefore they got attacked by their own hatchets.
Yes, I think that's I thought this season was going to have more guns, because Danny finally has a way. He showed at the end of Season 1 he can, block bullets with his fist. And I was like, okay, so now, because nobody had a gun in Season 1. I was like, where the fuck are all the guns? I was like, where are all the guns? And then in Season 2, I'm like, yes, all right, we can do it now. We can have guns. And they were still no guns. I was like, oh.
Davos had the dual fist. He's sort of like Wonder Woman's, those bullets, That would have been a cool image.
That would have been dope. All right.
Yeah. But anyway,
do you think they avoided the guns because they introduced Luke Cage in the meantime? And if there had been a lot of guns, we would have expected Luke Cage to come down there.
Yeah, and Luke Cage just had a different headspace at this point. I don't know how that would have worked.
I think that's out of scope for the episode. But
yeah,
it was a weird season.
Yeah, but to sum up, Iron Fist, the Netflix Marvel universe is just a giant race war, right? It's just
yeah,
I think so.
Pretty much.
That's New York City. Right, in real life, right? Rhiannon, you can confirm
What?
that New York City is just full of race wars, just all out in the open.
I have to say, Netflix very poorly prepared me for living in New York City. I expected gang wars, racially insensitive gang wars.
Yeah, right.
So I have been so let down.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to Rhiannon. Since we're already talking to you, can you talk to us about the timeline of figuring out that Mary Walker was going to be in this show and trying to, like, knowing what you know about her from the comics, just trying to figure out what her role would be in the show, to actually watching her in the show, and just how you kind of came out of that. What did you think about all of that?
So, I've always been a fan of Typhoid Mary.
Oh yeah.
I'm a Gemini. It fits my brand. For those that don't know their astrological signs, Geminis are considered like multi-personalities, the twins. I was the second person at San Diego Comic-Con, possibly the first, but I didn't yell it out. I instead yelled expletives to catch what Jeff Loeb was talking about. If I had been the first, I would have gotten to kiss Alice Eve. I didn't know that. I probably would have shouted Typhoid Mary instead of holy shit. When I made the realization. But anyways, there was... I was a little hesitant when I found out that Typhoid Mary was going to be in Iron Fist. And hesitant going into it because I had no idea how they were going to tie that in. Iron Fist, you have your martial arts and you have your triad gang wars and your dragons and all of that. So I didn't know how this person with dissociative identity disorder was going to fit into that universe. And I was really scared that they were going to have your martial arts, Davos, whatever over here, and then they were going to have their corporate warfare, Joy and Ward and Mary over here, and that the two wouldn't intersect well. So they avoided that. They tied her in beautifully. They evolved her character. Her character is way more sane than I expected. I thought there would be a little bit of a culturally insensitive approach to DID. I thought they would make her a little bit campy crazy. And they didn't. So I think they did a great job. I love her character. I want to be friends with her. I think I tweeted about that this past week. Like, I want to be friends with Walker, not Mary. Like, Mary, whatever. Go write your poetry. Draw your pictures. I might put your art on my wall. I want to be friends with Walker. And I think that might be why I'm single. Guys, that's I don't trust my own judgment. So but what I hinted to earlier, I think we did see that my theory is we very briefly saw that third personality. There is one fight where she just goes crazy, and at the end of it, Walker just sort of is there, and it's a slight moment of seeming disoriented and not entirely sure what just happened.
Which fight?
I don't remember. I was rewatching. It's somewhere in the middle of the series. I think it's somewhere where she's fighting a bunch of people, which doesn't happen a lot, I don't think. And when I was rewatching, I wasn't really paying attention to the fight, but at the end of it, I was watching her expressions, and she came out of it, and it was just like this little moment of, what just happened? And I wonder if we did see that third altar. That third altar came out, did the fight, and then very quickly snapped back to Walker.
Yeah.
Or if we did, I was looking for it. It was my second watching. So, I liked the twist with the third altar. It was slow. Maybe they didn't do the best with it, but overall, I like her as a character.
Yeah, definitely Alice Eve did a pretty nuanced performance, I thought, because even like, I walked in this show not knowing anything about a comic backstory. I didn't know about the DID aspect of it. I might have read it on Wikipedia once, but I totally forgot about it. But just from her first interactions with Danny, like I think I was saying on Twitter, was like, oh, this feels really off, but later on I figured out that was by design. It became fairly obvious even without any exposition or like Joy just finding a piece of paper on a shelf like that. That there was some sort of personality disorder in play here. I've had many qualms with like how mental health has been depicted in me. I just saw the Predator by Shane Black, and that
okay.
Yeah, I'm not gonna talk about the Predator too much. You can just read my Destructoid review of that, because it totally does not understand autism at all. But I don't know, it felt like a better attempt. I was surprised that they brought back, like, I want to say like the therapist or psychiatrist or whoever she was Mary was talking to. I think that was the guy from the mental hospital in season 1.
Was it really?
I think it was.
It's all connected.
And Thomas, like, you and I, we have a big problem with that episode.
For sure,
right?
for sure. But
yeah.
That's super cool if that's the case. They're keeping continuity, like, beyond. I would say that we're pretty big fans of Marvel and Marvel Netflix. Like, we're up there, and like,
sure.
I don't even think most of people at our level of fandom noticed that connection. So I like it when the show exceeds our own expertise.
Because we haven't checked this, have we?
That's true. That's all right. This is a good one.
I'm absolutely sure it was the guy, because I remember he was in the season 1 recap that Netflix shows. Anyway, back to Mary Walker. Speaking of reappearing in other shows, I mean, where does Mary Walker go next from here, do you guys think? Like, is it going to be in Iron Fist season 3, or are they going to, like, kind of float her around the other shows? Is she going to have a run-in with Punisher? Is she going to... I haven't seen any of Daredevil season 3 yet, but apparently some people here have, but,
no comment.
I don't know. Talk to me about the future of Mary Walker.
Oh, she shows up and she has lots of sex with Daredevil in a hallway.
Okay.
Hallway sex scene.
Exclusive, right here.
And next frontier of the Marvel Network.
I'm gonna break embargo here, but okay.
Daredevil season 3 is all about hallway sex. Matt and Foggy, Matt and Mary, Matt and Father Lantham. It gets really
It's actually
weird.
just eyes wide shut, but it's in a hallway instead.
Yeah. Wait till you hear our interview with Chris Brewster about
how he coordinated. Yes.
Can we actually? Lord. This is a tangent, and I know it's not on your list of topics. But while we're in the area, there were multiple sex scenes in Iron Fist season 2, and they all had vastly different, like, ways they were meant to come off. Because we had, like, Danny and Colleen that was meant to be like a wholesome, loving relationship at the start.
Sure.
We had Davos and his
whatever
was happening there. Ward with his benefactor. By the way, these are all like these are 3 and 3 episodes, so they were averaging pretty strong towards the beginning of the season. And I was sort of wondering like where they were going to take that theme of like the different place of sexuality in people's lives, and they dropped it immediately. But that I felt like that was starting to be a thing.
I wouldn't call that its own thing. I mean, to me, it's just like a way of like conveying character traits, like just the way that like Davos approached that, like very specifically with physicality, like that said a lot about his character, and like just the lack of intimacy that he's had all his life, probably, like being in Kunlun, and I don't wait. Danny and Colleen had who cares anyway.
I don't remember any of the sex scenes.
They were not super memorable.
The Ward one stands out because I didn't see it coming whatsoever. We're just
Well, they went in the closet.
Yeah, what the shit?
Yeah.
What?
They had like genuine exposition during that sex scene, and I was like, they're going full Game of Thrones on us here. Where when they need to tell us
That's
something about what's
sexposition,
been
my
happening
friend.
in between seasons, they just
Yeah.
do it during a sex scene. And
Yeah. Yeah, so Mary Walker probably gonna come back soon.
Well, I mean, that's one thing I've been thinking about that since I saw you put this in the show notes. There's no character, there are no villains that have, other than the Hand, maybe Madame Gal, if we call her a villain. The Hand is the only place where we've had any sort of crossover between these series. You know, Killmonger didn't get a chance to play with any of the other kids. None of Luke Cage's villains. Luke Cage has had, like, some of the villainiest villains that are, like, very clearly out there and sinister or whatever, and they haven't, you know, they haven't crossed past Midtown. We haven't had any of that. I mean, maybe one day Melvin Potter will go all gladiator on these guys, but maybe Mary... I mean, I would love nothing more than Mary Walker to show up in Daredevil. I can neither confirm nor deny that it happens in the 6 press screeners, but if it did, I would be very excited.
Right. Like, theoretically, like, that will make the most sense, right, out of any of the potential appearances.
I totally want Walker. In the comics, Mary hooks up with Matt Murdock.
Mm-hmm.
And the Typhoid personality is hired by Fisk to help make his life miserable. The Typhoid, at one point in the comics, in Born Again, the Typhoid personality sets Matt's hair on fire. And there's all kinds of cool stuff. But I would love to see Matt and Walker in a relationship. I don't think Walker would go for a relationship, but I think Matt Murdock might not either. So, you know, the two of them just having sex in a bathroom. And then
hair on fire.
Yeah, and then hair on fire. I want it even more now.
I want a direct, like, page to screen, like, frame by frame adaptation of whatever that must look like.
And then Mary will date Luke Cage, so she's the connective tissue between the shows.
Oh, yeah, it all makes perfect sense.
So since you guys haven't read the hair on fire scene, it starts with Mary walking up singing Monday, Monday.
Oh.
And then Matt Murdock's there, and she says, I've always wanted to tell you this. Burn! And then he catches on fire.
Wow.
So that's why
I can imagine that.
Watching the show when she started humming Monday, Monday, I was like, oh my god!
Wow, that's kind of cool.
If we see Charlie Cox at New York Comic Con, I'm just gonna start seeing that.
If?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, you're gonna make that happen, obviously. But Adam, any Mary Walker thoughts before we move on to the we can do either Meachums or Colleen next, but any Mary Walker thoughts?
No, not particular. Rhiannon pretty much summed it up. Though my one gripe was that at the end of the screener episodes we initially got just the first 6 episodes, and I was still...
Yeah, that's weird.
I was still, I guess, not sure about her through that point, but as the season did wrap up, I did warm up to her a lot more, especially since it got into her backstory and origin, if you will, and Sokovia and things of that nature.
Yeah. Meachums. Adam, talk about the Meachums. Yeah.
I can't get enough. The dude, Tom Pelphrey, killed it this year. I thought he was one of the bright spots in season 1, and this season, it's just, he had incredible range. You know, he gave us a new GIF we can use with not only was he sitting down flipping his group off, but he did the legs cross totally, like business casual type flip off, which was grand. But he would go from one one episode he would be making us laugh, and then he'd be going into, then he kind of had that monologue with Joy about how he absorbed all of his dad's abuse, so his dad wouldn't, release it on her. And that was pretty deep and touching. Joy was good. I mean, I'm not sure what it was. I thought she did a much better job in season 1. I'm not sure. I don't think she particularly stood out this year. I don't know. That part of it kind of seemed messy with me.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't really remember too many things that Joy did in that first season of Iron Fist. I mean, there was a little plot point with, I guess, the M&Ms to help figure out Danny's identity, but besides that, she was damseled most of the time, I think, in season 1. So I felt that in season 2, she actually did things, like she had more agency. And you can tell that she's a different character, like just from her costume change, like I kind of compared it to this one scene in Game of Thrones where like Sansa Stark kind of comes down and she's dressed up in black and she's kind of indicating that she's now a power player amongst all these men. So I don't know. I thought that her dynamic with Ward was pretty interesting. Like he talked a lot about Ward's little monologue to her, and to some point, like both siblings are kind of right. Like even though he was trying to protect her, he was kind of taking that choice away from her. She was kind of he was taking agency away from her. So now she's just kind of like fighting for her right to be her own person, which I think is a fine character arc. But yeah, Thomas, Rhiannon, any other additional Meachum thoughts? Any Meachum discourse?
Lots of those. I am heavily in Adam's camp. I was a huge fan of Ward. My two possibly favorite moments of the season were, first of all, that conversation he has with Joy, where he's trying to explain this whole history, and she's sort of like feeling like it's too late. And you can almost see how he's rehearsed this in his head. I mean, he's an actor, but like, the character has thought about this moment so many times, and he's so frustrated that like when it actually happens, it's like the worst reaction he could have gotten, which is that like it's too late and that has already been blown. And then the moment where Typhoid Mary says like, "Do you want your teeth ripped out of your skull?" And he goes, "No, I do not. Nobody wants their teeth ripped out of their skull." Had me on the ground laughing so hard, and my roommate came out and asked me what, and I rewound it and played it, and he was like, "You're insane." But I love Ward so much that line really got me. I thought he was a joy, and then I kind of agree that Joy she felt like a CW actor to me. Like I was getting strong Black Canary vibes from her the whole time, where like I wanted to like her, and I think she was really well written, but I felt like the actress played the like cunning and evil card a little too strong at the start. Where she had this whole vibe of like, I know something that you do not, and I'm presenting a front. Like, it was just like very like an obvious sort of character choice that I couldn't read into it. But I thought she did really well in the scenes where she had sort of decided to turn on Davos and then came to his warehouse and was like, had to keep up that front the entire time and like afraid for her life, but having like show positivity. I thought that her character really flourished in that scenario. And then even after she's thrown off the balcony, I think she did a great job of like being like, fuck it, like all the cards are on the table, like fuck you. I thought that her character like only really came out.
Well, in Joy's defense, I think the one scene where she really came out was when she kind of orchestrated that sex scandal with the curator and Davos. Like that seems like something that she was pulling her knowledge from, before, like when she was just kind of a socialite, when she was still with Rand Enterprises. And for the first time, I guess, I got the sense it was the first time this is the first time she used this information for something devious. Like she kind of took control of the situation. In terms of Joy infiltrating Davos's his warehouse, I guess. That's where I kind of got lost with her, because I felt that she was kind of telegraphing her intent very obviously. She's like, trying to fit in, and then she's like, where's the bowl? And, I was very surprised that she wasn't thrown off the balcony earlier, to be fairly honest.
Meachum, Walker, and Turk Barrett with the you let your sister call me. Yeah. Wait, no, I'll let your sister convince me you were a pussy, or no. Your sister let me call you a pussy. I don't know. However it was, the pussy scene, the pussy line was fantastic.
Yeah, someone was nice to Turk Barrett for once.
Dude, this was Turk Barrett's favorite season of Netflix by far. No doubt.
He gave him golf swing advice. Yeah. Like, that's a nice thing.
But what the hell, Turk?
That's true.
Turk's now back into bad stuff. I mean, he went from the drug trade or the gun trafficking.
Luke Cage destroyed his entire inventory.
Destroys his inventory. So he's like, Luke. Well, but Luke can destroy guns if he wants. But,
he tried to go clean, and Luke still came and bashed up his shop. Now he goes dirty. He's selling guns again. He doesn't get punched once.
True.
Now he's helping him with his golf swing.
Yeah.
One more thing about Ward. Just the fact that Ward and Danny are friends now.
Yeah.
Like, it was so nice.
Yeah.
They're just joking around.
They were very much brothers, I felt.
Yes.
Not their personalities are not the type to get along. They have almost a disdain for one another's lifestyles, but they're forced together by circumstance, and they have acknowledged that they're just together now. There's nothing they can do.
Yeah, the moment Ward, when Danny asks Ward to come with them, I'm like, I don't know, this seems like it's almost too good to be true. And then Ward actually decides to go. I think that was almost perfect, because, I mean, thinking about Ward and the shitty situation he's in, it makes the perfect amount of sense that he would actually just up and leave with Danny.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, this is so good. Because it just makes sense.
I want to see that buddy trip movie.
Do you think he's teaching Danny to golf?
I hope so.
I do not.
If that's what I just want to see. Season 3 opens up with Ward trying to meditate or something, and then he gets too fidgety and freaks out.
Imagine Danny with the iron. How the Iron Fist apparently empowers your weapons now. He's just got the golf club and it's glowing yellow.
Raven, do not take any of this advice.
That's what I want from season 3 now. I'm starting my wish list, and that's on it.
Yeah.
Chris, you wrote about how Ward and Danny's arcs through the season were, in a sense, parallel in terms of realizing that they had not undergone a quest for identity, and then going on that quest together. I thought was excellent and awesome, and I thought that it was really cool when Danny's describing feeling the power of the dragon and how he never uses the word addiction. And Ward is just like, oh, I can connect with this crazy chi thing that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean,
that was a cool moment.
Yeah, the whole concept of they're kind of going through parallel journeys of learning how to take care of themselves, and Ward had already gone through all of his character development after season 1. There's that scene that I think I tweeted about it, where he's talking to I guess his assistant, the one who went to Wharton. And he kind of fires off at her in a very classic Ward season 1 kind of way, but then he apologizes to her, and I was like, oh, and then it was just such a nice little moment,
I've been using that line on my team at work as well. I promise you I'm not an asshole boss.
Yeah.
I think it's going really well. The Ward School of Business.
Yeah. They believe you, right? You're not an asshole boss. Okay.
Yeah. And if anybody asks if I'm busy, definitely swamped.
It's working.
Yeah, it's working.
Another thing I wrote about was how Colleen inherited the Iron Fist at the end. Did you guys expect that at all? I know there's precedent for having a glowing sword in the comics, right? But it's not the Iron Fist she has, is it?
So I'm gonna get a little too technical here right now. You guys ready?
Give it to me.
I am 90% sure that is not the Iron Fist. Okay. I am pretty sure the bowl and this procedure just allows you to manipulate your chi. But technically, it is not the Iron Fist. I mean, in the comics, Colleen does do something similar and manipulates her chi in another way. And I mean, technically, we all have chi. I haven't been able to light my fist up yet, so I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. But yeah, I'm not sure. I wonder if that's going to be something, like season 3, where technically it's not. I don't know. 'Cause that's kind of what I got into it on Twitter about. You have these. I thought I was kind of, a radical Iron Fist fan, but then you have this group of people past me. It's like, what the hell? You took away the Iron Fist, and I think it's kind of a good way that they could not necessarily walk back, but just kind of explain, well, Danny still is the Iron Fist, and this is just something else. It's really a nitpicky thing, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, all these new seasons are about, shaking up the structure, so, Danny doesn't have the Iron Fist anymore. Luke Cage is kind of a bad guy. Jessica Jones, lost all of her friends. Daredevil's technically dead.
And having all those hallway sex scenes.
Yeah. And as an added plot twist, Matt Murdock can just see now. He got his vision back just to completely subvert. No,
that would be amazing.
But
uses his cheat to see. I knew that the main complaint about Iron Fist season 1 was that the Iron Fist was A, white, B, played by that actor in particular. And I thought that what they should do is find a way to transfer the powers of the Iron Fist to someone else. I did not think they would have the balls to do it. And then when the season 2 trailer came out and I saw that Davos was going to get it, I was like, oh, that's perfect. Davos will be the villain and he'll take the Iron Fist away and then he'll be the Iron Fist. And they did that. And then they were like, also, we're going to just do everything you guys asked for. So now Colleen is also going to be the Iron Fist. But I thought it was great. I mean, I didn't think they were going to have the balls to do it, and they totally did it. And I think they did a good thing in they didn't do that right at the beginning of the season to just have the season be about Colleen. It was about that whole journey and her learning to accept it, Danny learning to give it up. The season was about that transition, and they built it up all the way, so that was cool.
That wasn't even a possibility that occurred to me. So Thomas, you're a freaking prophet here.
Yeah,
I didn't think they were gonna do it. I just
I saw Davos with the 2 fists, and I was like, wow, they all figured out how to have Iron Fists. I didn't even.
Yeah, me too. I thought it was gonna be fist versus fist. Yeah.
Yeah, see, that was awkward. We got the screen. I think I watched the first 6 episodes before the trailer even was released. So I'm like, well, shit, this is a stupid trailer. But
oh yeah. I'm just imagining season 3 being like Iron Man's Armor Wars, but it's gonna be Iron Fist's Chi Wars, and everyone just has the iron knee and the iron forehead, and
well, are there?
Everyone's gonna have
Hold on, we have comic book people in the audience, so in our group. So aren't there other immortal weapons?
For sure, there are a total of 7 of them.
Okay, and do they have
2
other glowing parts, or what's their deal? Could we see that?
Yeah, so it comes back to chi. They all manipulate their chi in different ways. We kind of saw one in episode 6, The Bride of Nine Spiders. But yeah, they also do. Fat Cobra is this huge sumo wrestler, but he happens to be the Barry Allen. He's Barry Allen, the fastest man alive. So that would be totally awesome if they included that. But yeah, not really any of them makes their fist light up. Technically, Davos is an immortal weapon, and he has the fist and stuff. But yeah, nothing glowing.
Yeah, did anyone just want to talk about season 3 thoughts, like preferably stuff you might not have talked about before on the other podcast?
Caleb had. Oh no, we talked about it on the other podcast. Never mind. I think if they did, I mean, they kind of dug into it a little bit with Colleen's ancestors with the Pirate Queen of Pinghai Bay.
Yeah.
You know, it's no secret that Danny isn't the first Iron Fist. You know, so if they would have, 7 episodes feature on Danny and his story, but then interlace that with different tales of the other Iron Fists, that would go a long way in kind of expanding the mythos. Yeah, that's kind of what I'd like to see, at least.
Rhiannon, any Iron Fist season 3 item, like wish list items?
No. I talked about it. I liked the idea of there being no, I don't know, if it's gonna be the Danny and Ward show, the Danny Ward buddy traveling show would be fantastic. And then that leaves Colleen and Misty to go off and be Daughters of the Dragon, and maybe, I don't know where the future of the Netflix universe is going to go, if they're going to keep doing the standalones or maybe start giving us team-ups. I don't see it moving to Heroes for Hire anymore, at all. Which, I applaud them, because, like, that was something that if they kept hanging out in New York City together, doing their things, they had to become Heroes for Hire, and I applaud them for just moving so far away from that. I don't know, I don't really have a wish list. Ward.
Yeah, that's the obvious thing to do. I don't want to see the most obvious thing, to be honest.
Yeah, well, the obvious easy answer is rarely the right one, as I've learned. So.
Yeah, I still want Walker to set Matt's hair on fire.
Oh yeah, that happened. Yeah. Yeah, Thomas, didn't you have a literal wish list, or that you were joking about? Like,
I said I just created it, and the only thing on it was the Golden Golf Club. I will definitely say that I think that the Ward-Danny partnership excited me a lot more when it was just Danny is good at martial arts and Ward has money and kind of knows how to negotiate and work around the business world. And I was super excited to see that, and I hope that they still do that. But it sounds like Danny's going to get magic powers again and have guns now and supernatural aim, and I feel like the partnership's a little less equal, and that makes me sad. I guess Ward can drink more. I'm not totally sure what their dynamic's going to be there. And then I would love for Colleen to continue to go on a journey. I feel like I don't care about her ancestry that much as like what she's going to do with this gift that she has now. And what kind of hero she's going to be. And she gets to kind of have an origin story season.
Yeah.
Where now she has these powers, she has to go through the hero's journey and all that kind of stuff without Danny, without friends. I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah. I think if they can't afford a dragon for season 3, they should just copy and paste the one from Game of Thrones.
Yeah. So this just in, breaking news. Raven Metzner just confirmed that it was the psychiatrist from season 1.
Wow. You heard it here first, folks.
Well, actually, he advertised it on the Twitter. He, like, quote tweeted, so everybody just heard it from him, and we're old news. But this was when it really happened, people.
Yeah, so by the time this is out, you should be able to read my article that I did a read on at the beginning of this episode on the website. You can also read Adam's review on Marvel News Desk, and also listen to him recited on YouTube. I want to say, Adam, that the review has a lot of hits.
Yeah, that's what they tell me, I guess.
Yeah.
Somebody told me that. Yeah. I don't know.
Stick the word.
Rhiannon says it's got that Reddit credit.
Yeah, we hear it has Reddit credit. Everybody, please go share our stuff on Reddit, because, like, Reddit credit.
Because we need them clicks.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I also have my own review of Iron Fist Season 2. You can find that on Destructoid. And I think that's pretty much it. Thomas Rasmussen, if someone wanted to find you on the internet, where could they find you?
I hope that they don't, and you should stop trying.
All right, you suck.
I don't like using any of my social media accounts, and I'm not attempting to be famous. So
Google Plus, it's
definitely not.
Sure. Adam, because you are not a coward, where can people find you on social media?
At Adam Barnhardt, BARNHARDT.
Okay. And Rhiannon, your social media handles you would like to share.
On Twitter, I am at Shot of Patron. For reasons because Brooklyn Wallace is taken. And you won't see the word Rhiannon there.
Sure.
It's Brooklyn something or other.
Typhoid Mary avatar, right? Profile picture?
Yeah, Typhoid Mary avatar. Yeah. I mean, if anybody wants my live journal, you can hit me up. But,
the two of you, anything on the site that people should check out that I might have missed, or anything that's coming up soon that you can talk about?
All Daredevil all the time.
Did you do a video on the Gifted, or is that coming out, or am I not?
Yeah, we have a Gifted video coming out probably this weekend. Our Patreon subscribers can already see it. And it's by a new contributor, Sarah Angel.
Oh, cool.
And she's just helping us out with Gifted and Runaways stuff when she can.
Awesome.
So we'll have that coming out. If you're looking for, if you're listening to AP Marvel and you don't listen to the Marvel News Desk podcast, look through our stuff. We have a cool interview with Chris Brewster. That's Daredevil's stuntman, and he also did Captain America. You should definitely listen to that. For sure. Because he is one cool dude. And when Daredevil comes out, we will talk to him about those hallway sex scenes.
Yeah, awesome.
Because there were massive stunts that happened in those.
Yeah.
And he had some real input. Who knew?
Yeah. No, wow. Really pushing that.
And if you are from Marvel and thinking I'm violating my NDA, then obviously...
then you haven't seen.
Yeah, you should watch your own damn
if
show.
Anybody out there thinks I'm actually spoiling Daredevil with hallway sex scenes.
Speaking of...
You're telling me Matt and Foggy actually don't have sex?
I can neither confirm nor deny that Matt and Foggy...
Okay. The NDA was very specific, Adam.
Gotcha.
I mean, like, it had that extra line that you will not tell anybody about the Matt and Foggy relationship.
Yeah. Speaking of sex, the next episode that should come out week after this is actually about love and sex and how it's depicted in the MCU. We got my playwright buddy Dave Harris on that. A lot of technical issues occurred during that episode, so I'll see how that turns out on my end. Hopefully it'll be a coherent episode. There were a lot of great points made, but at the same time we talked about a lot of Adam and Rhiannon, you saw this on Twitter, but we do talk about some of Vision's parts, I guess we can say. Yeah. So there's some expect some discourse on that level. But yeah, look forward to that. And you can find me on Twitter at Compenderizer. You can find Marvel News Desk at Marvel News Desk, and we also have a Patreon you can give to. And yeah, thanks to Izzy Sio for our logo. I think when Charles Villanueva also made a new logo for us that we might push out soon. Steve Motter made the music, and that's AP Marvel for this week. Guys, thanks for being on this week.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing the editing.
Yeah, totally. My resident Iron Fist fan and Typhoid Mary fan and whatever Thomas is, so...
Wow. You should give me something.
Okay, well, that's it for us today. Goodbye, good night, good luck.